Hello and welcome back. A little bit later today, due to some unforeseen events. Life just happens, and I'm just very happy that you are always looking forward for our interactions, and then you are here now. On those of you who will come later and watch this picking up about this story and this backbone that we've been talking about for a week, and we are almost at its end. And of course, remember that your motivation to come to these conversations might be because you are of Portuguese descendancy, or you are even thinking on immigrating to Portugal or doing business in one of the Portuguese spoken countries, and having this history, this backbone, this heritage behind it, it will just easy the learning of the language. But you can say that, okay, Ines, but the House of Portugal, there's so much thing. You have just launched the website, www.thehouseofportugal.com, and you are focusing so much on history and language. Why? Because we are about to open our academy, to reopen our academy, the House of Portugal Academy. We will be reopening in February, and soon, very soon, we will be here just about to show you what we are preparing for you, giving you plenty of content, and I'm going to give you an absolute jewel of a gift that you will not like to miss out. So stay tuned. This all takes a sequence. This all has a sequence. This all builds up. It's not a game, it's not a play, but it's really important for you to then understand and take the best out of everything that I have to give you for free. So this is a fantastic opportunity, and make sure that you go back to our YouTubes or our Facebooks, depending on the platform where you are watching. Please put a like, please subscribe our channels, distribute to your family, your friends, and everybody that you think that might benefit from receiving all of this. Go back at least to last Saturday when we started talking about the Celt influence in the Portuguese language. Then we passed on the Goths and the Visigoths, the Roman Portugal, the Moors, and the Germanic Portugal, dictatorship, the discoveries, the reconquest, the Iberian, the 60 years of Iberian administration of Portugal, and also, like yesterday, we start talking about the French, the French call it revolution. So we talked about that the French insisted that the Portuguese would choose and close their ports to the English, and they opened them into to Spanish and French ships, and also then to arrest all Englishmen in the country and confiscate their property. This, of course, didn't happen because Portugal had always had a friendly relationship with England, so the government procrastinated and so forth until during the Treaty of Fontainebleau, France and Spain then signed this treaty that gave Napoleon the right to invade Portugal through Spain. This was a huge catastrophe, a social, humanitarian catastrophe, because the French and the Spanish troops, they roved the countryside, arresting, killing, plundering, and raping as they pleased. And later in 1808, Portugal got help from the British, their oldest allies, and with their help, headed by General Sir Arthur Wellesley, defensive lines were built around Lisbon. And when Napoleon reached the fortifications, he eventually had to retreat. So you can ask me where to see the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries of Portugal. Well, you can see it in there's many examples of buildings, mostly from the 17th century. In Lisbon, definitely the Igreja de São Vicente Fora, and also Palácio da Fronteira. Sé Nova in the city of Coimbra, and of course o Palácio dos Duques em Vila Viçosa. So from the 18th century are several Baroque churches found throughout the country, many with ornate interiors or glittered wood, such as the São Francisco and Santa Clara in the city of Porto. And of course, the Palácios de Mafra e Palácio de Queluz, and also the Torre dos Clérigos no Porto, also date from this time, as well as many elegant country houses such as the Palácio de Mateus as well. And who of you have tasted a very, very Mateus rosé? Remember that like little roundy, smallish bottle of rosé? Yes, it's from this estate. So Lisbon Baixa district was also mostly rebuilt during this time, following the earthquake in 1755, and we also spoke about the Marquis de Pombal, who took a very big endeavor on renovating and recuperating the city. And the 19th century was dominated by the neoclassicism, as it can be seen in Lisbon, no Palácio da Ajuda, and in several other buildings in the capital. And I would say that the cherry on top of the cake of these impressive buildings are undoubtedly the Palácio da Pena and Palácio de Montserrat, both in Sintra. So Lisbon, Rossio also, and the train station, the Estação de São Bento no Porto, and also the elevador de Santa Justa, for an example, and bridges in the city of Porto also date from this time. So not to lose much more time, but there is a whole lot of interesting buildings and historic sightseeing monuments that should be visited and worthwhile. So today we're going to start by the beginning of the 20th century, which was marked by a radical nationalist Republican movement. And in 1908, the king and crown prince were assassinated. And in 1910, after an uprising by military officers, Portugal was declared a republic. So during the First World War, Portugal joined the Allies, and in the post-war years, political chaos deepened. So between 1910 and 1945, there were 45 changes in government. This is very important because it's most of our grandparents are still living in from these times. So this is a huge shift in Portuguese culture and in Portugal of today. So please pay close attention. Sorry, there is an helicopter. Oh, by the way, like yesterday, a helicopter just helped with 7 doctors on board to the city of Johannesburg to see a little bit of what's news. Very, very unfortunate. So let's go back to the period of 1910 and 1945. So as I said, there were 45 changes of government during this period, often brought about through military intervention. In 1932, António Oliveira Salazar became prime minister. And during the Second World War, Portugal was declared neutral. So Salazar was pretty much a dictator and also refused to give up Portugal's colonies. But India occupied Portuguese Goa in 1961, and the local nationalists rose up in Angola. So similar movements happened in the Portuguese Guinea and Mozambique. So please bear with me. This is extremely important, especially if you are planning to do business in Portuguese-spoken Africa, as Angola and Mozambique specifically. Okay, so As a result, there were costly military expeditions. In 1968, Salazar suffered the stroke, and Marcelo Caetano was his successor. So military officers grew reluctant to serve in colonial wars, and several hundred of them carried out a bloodless coup on April 25th, 1975. Why bloodless coup? Because it is says that the Revolução de Abril or Revolução dos Cravos, there was not one shot that was shed. So the people they were fed up of being kept very poor, very ignorant, with sending their young men, to wars in the colonies that wouldn't bring them no uh, wealth at all. They will bring a lot of wealth, but to the coffers of the state. Never in Portugal the state treasure was so full of pure gold, but the people were kept very poor and very ignorant. There was not freedom of speech, and then eventually in 74, there were with the militaries and the people. The militaries, they prepared a coup and they marched their tanks, and on the sign of a specific song played on the national radio, which was the sign for the tanks to come out of the military facilities and to march to Lisbon and to demote Salazar. The tanks marched, and there is a a vendedora de flores, that was carrying red carnations, and she gave a red carnation and put it in the mouth of a weapon, of an AK-47. And the red carnations were then distributed in the tank and the cannons and etc. And there are many photos depicting, and that is why it's called that the soldiers were prepared to fire, and ships were in the river Tejo, pointing strategically. They were ready, and but they prefer to not to shed any bullets, and instead marking a red carnation as a representation. So, a Batalha dos Cravos, ou Revolução dos Cravos, ou Revolução de Abril. The African colonies were then given independence, and a new constitution committed Portugal to a blend of socialism and democracy. What democracy can be, because when you are responsible for a country, for a nation for 500 years, it's totally responsible to tell them, now you are free, without teaching these people to exercise freedom. And that in many took and drove many of the former colonies straight into bloody civil wars. So from the part of Portuguese, very naive, very utopic, but also very responsible. And as a result, there were costly military expeditions. And the African colonies that were then given independence, and the new constitution committed Portugal to a blend of socialism and democracy, and there were several governments after that. And there was also the PREC, which was like a interim government until the political parties would be legalized and set up, and alliances, and people would actually find their feet on exercising their freedom of speech. So the country was only considered officially stable in the mid 80s, 1980s. In 1986, now African I was, because of the situation of the independence, we had to fled to Portugal as retornados with nothing, because then now Angola was independent, and going back to a Portugal that was extremely poor, extremely naive, extremely ignorant, and extremely misogynist and with preconcept, and it was tough times. So from 74 to 86, you can just imagine how it could have been to grow up in Portugal, and the drama that just took over countries as Angola and Mozambique. They didn't know how to exercise their freedom, and they invited Russians and Cubans and with the best at heart to assist them, and might not have been the most beneficial for the people, for these countries' people. So, in 1986, Portugal joined the European Economic Community, later renamed European Union in 1992. And with the European Union funds, Portugal went through a dramatic change. It became the EU fastest growing country, recording an unprecedented 4.5% to 5% annual economic growth rate. And today, Portugal is a stable country, well integrated in the European Union. It's on the list of the countries with very high human development. And attention in future years will focus on bringing the country's level of skilled jobs and educational achievements closer to the European average. It must say, very hard to beat a European, a Portuguese teacher, a Portuguese engineer, or a Portuguese doctor, or researcher even. So in 1998, Lisbon hosted the World Fair Expo 98, leading to major infrastructure and urban regeneration projects. And you say that, Inez, okay, so now we are getting like really, really, really fast. I mean, we come to the French Revolution to 1998. I told you this was going to be crunch, 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 crunch. Can you just imagine how I teach? That's how I teach, a lot and a lot and a lot of content. But at the end, you will get the best preparation possible, not only on speaking Portuguese, but understanding the whys behind everything that you say and do, and especially when it comes to doing business. So now, in 1998, Lisbon hosted the World Fair Expo 98, leading to this major infrastructure, right? And a year later, the country adopted the euro as a currency. Just like that. The country adopted the euro as its official currency, dropping the escudo along with 10 other countries of the European Union. And in 2004, it hosted the Euro 2004 championship. And who doesn't remember of seeing Cristiano Ronaldo as a kid? Well, his nickname was Uputu, playing with Rui Costa, with Luis Figo, and so many of our brilliant Sergio Conceição, our brilliant players. And in July 2007, he took over the European Union presidency when the European Union members signed the Lisbon Treaty, which revised the European Union constitutional framework. Despite the current economic and financial crisis of the Eurozone, which has greatly affected the country, Portugal is now a country looking to the future, while never forgetting its long and remarkable past. You understand now why we took 1 week, step by step. Please follow my advice, go back to our sessions from Saturday and watch them at your pace. You will see very worth it. And now you ask me, okay, and where to see the 20th century in modern Portugal? Well, One of Portugal's most photographed monuments is the Monumento dos Descobrimentos in Lisbon. It was built in the last century in 1960 to mark the 500th anniversary of the death of Prince Henry, Príncipe Henrique, o Navegador. A Ponte 25 de Abril was built shortly after. The other bridge over the Tagus River, the Rio Tejo, a Ponte Vasco da Gama, was built later in 1998, just in time for the Expo 98. And the area of which now is called Parque das Nações, where my home in Portugal, it's very, 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 very close, and my mom's home, was is now the best example of the modern and future Portugal. The buildings that first represented the modern Portugal, however, were as Torres das Amoreiras, by a very famous architect, Taveira. Buildings in Lisbon, built between 1980 and 1987. Also, in the city of Porto, Casa da Música is the best, most recent example of the 21st century architecture in Portugal. And here we are. I hope that you had enjoyed. This had been a very, very, very speedy crunch discussion. Please, I welcome your comments. If there is anything else that you would like me to add, please go back, watch these videos, and pay attention, because very, very, very soon I am going to release something extremely important that you would like to hear. In the meantime, watch these videos, go to www.thehouseofportugal.com, go to the part of the services and language services and read what I have there to tell you. And if you are interested on knowing more, on getting more knowledge and grasping Portuguese as a language, either for your personal or professional development, this is the place where you want to be. This is the place where you want to watch and pay attention, because soon, 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 there will be dramatic content being handed out for free for you. So stay tuned, put a like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family. I would really, really be thankful to grow this community even more. I will see you tomorrow. And for all of you that are living in South Africa, remember that tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, from 7 o'clock in the morning, at the embassy in Pretoria and at the Consulate General in Bruma, Johannesburg, it is open to cast your vote for the presidential elections. And remember that voting, it's not only your right, it is your duty. It's not only queuing and scheduling an appointment to get your cartão cidadão or your passport. It is your right and your duty to exercise your vote. Cast your vote. Perhaps, very probably, I will meet you there. Stay safe, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.